Hello, my name is Marcus Wabschall. I'm an immigration attorney located in Southern Florida with offices in Naples, Miami, West Palm Beach, and Orlando. We specialize in E1 and E2 treaty investor visas for folks coming from treaty countries to start their businesses here in the United States. In this video, I just want to address a common question that I get quite a bit, and that question is, can I work at another job on my E2 visa? So this seems like a very kind of innocent question, but there are some very clear rules around this that I want to discuss. The answer to the question is kind of yes and no. So let me talk about the no first, and then I'll talk about what the yes is. So the general rule is if you're in the United States on an E2 visa, you really cannot perform work outside of your E2 business. So the way you want to think about this is whatever formed the basis of your E2 visa when you got approved, that kind of defines the limits of what you can do. So depending on how your business model is set up, if you have a sophisticated business model with multiple entities or something like that, that's different than somebody who, like the majority of people who just have like a single entity business. They just have like one business. But the general idea here is you cannot perform work outside of whatever you got approved to do. So that is the general rule. So a lot of people, they just want to do something that seems kind of benign, right? They just want to just go make some extra cash on the side, or just, they have a hobby and they want to work somewhere else in something that they're just kind of more passionate about maybe. So unfortunately, this is not permitted. Like I said, the rules are very clear that you can only perform work for your E2 business, okay? That restriction doesn't apply to your spouse if they're here on an E2 as a spouse dependent. But for you as the principal E2, unfortunately, this is one of the restrictions on the E2, right? You can only work for your E2 business. Okay. Now, that is not to say, for example, that you can't like maybe volunteer at somewhere if you have like a hobby or you're passionate about some other type of work. There's nothing to stop you from doing any kind of like charity or, like I said, volunteer work for some organization or some company. What's important is that you're not working, right? You're not like on the books as an employee. And even if you're not on the books, you still can't be working, like taking cash under the table or something like that. You just can't be working. Why did I say yes? So the reason I say yes is it's kind of it's a little bit tied into what I said before about people who have more sophisticated E2 businesses set up. So some people will set up their E2 as like a parent company with like subsidiary businesses that are related to the E2 company. And in a certain capacity, the principal E2 visa holder could do work related to those subsidiary companies of the parent E2 company. Again, this is not the case for a lot of people. Most people just have like a single entity E2 visa. But in those cases where you have a more complex E2 visa business, as long as you're performing duties related to your principal E2 visa business, you can be involved in those subsidiary companies to a certain extent. Okay. Another option that I've seen people do is or kind of related to working for another business, they want to know, can they just transfer their like E2 visa to like some other E2 business? So maybe they have a friend or a colleague who is in the United States on an E2 visa just like they are, and they want to just like switch companies and go work for their friends or their colleagues' E2 business. And I've seen that work. That's something that can be a workaround. That would be a substantial change in your E2 visa status, so you would have to file an amendment to get a new visa through the Department of State, or you'd have to amend it with USCIS if you're not going to go and get a new visa. But that is something that I have seen work and is a possibility for you as long as you can continue to meet all the E2 treaty requirements as an employee of another E2 business. Okay, so that is kind of a general overview of, can I work at another job? The answer, like I said, is kind of both yes and no. Generally, no, you can't, but there are some potential workarounds for people who want to switch jobs. Those are things that you want to think about ahead of time. It's not something you want to just spring on an immigration attorney or just spring on yourself as you get close to the end of your visa. So these are things you want to be thinking about ahead of time and make sure that you give yourself plenty of time to make those changes if that's something that you think you want to do.